Good Saturday morning. You can hear the chimes going off here. This good Saturday. You can hear a lot of noise in a few minutes. But the day that my 3 clocks chime at the same time will be the last day in the history of the world. Our time will come. It's the last judgment. Okay, don't worry about it. There's no chance of it. I've been trying for 20 years to get these clocks to chime same time. They don't even come close. Anyway, get back to the topic. Here again is you want to see Matthew. This is the image of Christ here is from Isaiah. He draws from the prophet Isaiah, okay, the portraiture of Christ. And it is not of a powerful judge. But this is where you get your the gentility of the Christian message. It isn't a call to power or might, but an invitation to intimacy. I'll read it to you. The Pharisees went out and took counsel against Jesus to put him to death because he was a threat. Those days, they played serious in the sandbox. They played rough, and they had to because survival was at stake. See? Tribal survival was at stake. The stakes were sky high, and Christ was wreaking havoc with the law, which means he was basically a traitor, okay? If you're a Jew and you're looking at Christ, he's a traitor. If you're a Christian, he's a redeemer. You see? Okay? It's fundamental. I don't blame the Pharisees. They didn't have the faith. It wasn't given to them. And since they didn't have the faith in whom was Christ, he is actually a direct threat, not to them personally, but to their narrative, their survivability as a people, as a tribe, as a people, because they depended on, and precisely so, on the law, the integrity of the law. He attacks it, in their view, by the behavior, let alone his teaching. You see? Now watch, he says. When Jesus realized this, he withdrew from that place. They were coming after him. Many people followed him, and he cured them all, but he warned them not to make him known. This was all a complicated story. Too much to go into. It's called the Messianic secret. Why does Christ hide? Why does he want him not known? There's a whole theory with this that goes on. It's beyond my skill. This was to fulfill what had been spoken through Isaiah the prophet. Now, what is this great line? Now, this is a description of Christ. But you have to know who Christ is to see the power and beauty of the Isaiah prophecy. Behold my servant, whom I have chosen. Christ is the chosen Son of God, okay? See? My beloved in whom I delight. You are my beloved Son. In the words of... at the baptism, behold my beloved Son in whom I am well pleased, okay? I just bungled that, okay? I shall place my spirit upon him, and he will proclaim justice to the Gentiles. See, that's extremely important from Matthew's point of view. He's telling the Jewish Christians, look, pointing to the Gentiles, they're welcome. Okay, he will not contend or cry out. See? Nor will anyone hear his voice in the streets, screaming out, making a lot of noise, racket, okay? Boy, this is one of the best lines in the whole of all Bibles, all the Bible, Old, New Testament, whatever you want to call it. A bruised reed he shall not break. A smoldering wick he will not quench until he brings justice to victory. And in his name the Gentiles will hope. A bruised reed he will not break. A smoldering wick he will not quench. It's very different, isn't it, from Amos, the image of God, the Redeemer in Amos, who's vindictive and angry, going to whack the hell out of you. Not in Isaiah. And here Matthew is using Isaiah. See, a bruised reed he shall not break, a smoldering wick he will not quench, until he brings justice to victory, makes all things right, by the divine command. And in his name the Gentiles will hope. The world will hope. We will hope in him. In his name we will hope. In Christ's name is the hope of the world. Well, the hope of the world is in Christ. A bruised reed he shall not break, and a smoldering wick he will not quench. Boy, I love that line. I think of that in a confessional. I think of that as the apostolic role, the ministerial pastoral, not apostolic, the pastoral role of the church. Her is to preach a word of wholeness to the world, even when she has to be firm, like a parent telling the kid, don't do this, you're hurting yourself. The church, when she has to speak against abuses in the world, it's not in a vindictive spirit, but to call ourselves and call the world back to what is noble and good and decent about it. You see? And it doesn't do it to condemn, and it doesn't crash down and condemn. A bruised reed it shall not break, and a smoldering wick it will not quench. I so believe that ministerially. I think of the confessional. I'm not out to make it harder for you. I'm here to lift your burdens. I remember the guy, passionate, said that 50 years ago when we were doing retreats, together in Baltimore. I think it was Nick who said, Father Nick Zitz. It was a powerful line. We're here to lift your burdens, not to put them on your back. We're here to lift your burdens. A bruised reed I shall not break. You're fragile. A fragile soul, somebody struggling with their life. I'm not here to make it harder for you. I'm here to lift that burden, not to break it, but to strengthen you. I see that very strongly pastorally in a smoldering wick. I'll not quench. I'm not going to put out hope. I'm going to strengthen your hope. I'm going to do everything in my power to help you. And that's the truth. It could be to be firm, to say to somebody, gently but firmly, cut that out. Come on, you're hurting yourself, as opposed to saying, God's going to really throw your worthless ass in hell. Let somebody else say that. Bruised reed I shall not break. See, smoldering wick I shall not quench. See, until justice is set, till all things are made right. And how are they made right? By the inner conversion of our souls, by seeing the good in ourselves, seeing the good that Christ is within us, and to affirm it. Gently and firmly to affirm it. Not out of terror, but out of the desire for what is good and beautiful and true. Christ himself, life. Not to give up. I wonder about so many of our young people. I'm so afraid for them because there's so many have already given up. I see it in my kids in class. I mean, I'm stunned by it at times, how afraid they are, and so much how depressed they are about life. I can understand it. We live in a miserably tough world. But my God, the spark of life is so powerful. See? Don't quench that smoldering fire of life in you. Not at 20 years old. Don't give it up at 80. Affirm your life. Lead it wisely and beautifully. Don't break the bruised reed. See? I mean that. I think one of the most privileged parts of my life is to teach that 18-year-old to believe in themselves. I really mean that. I look at them and I look in the eyes of tomorrow. I see beauty, goodness, hope. Not a lost generation, not even remotely. But I'll be damned if I'm going to let them think they are a lost generation. They are anything but. But I tell them, lead. Create the world. Believe in yourself. Believe in the goodness of life. Affirm it. Many of my kids aren't even Christians, okay? Believe in life. And if you're Christian, believe in Christ. He doesn't call you to the past. He calls you to tomorrow and the fruitfulness of tomorrow. Lead. See that light and pursue it. And don't ever, what I tell my kids? Never let anybody say no to you. The word no is merely a suggestion. It's never definitive. Don't anybody ever tell you you can't, because you can and you will. Don't let anybody defeat you, and don't defeat yourself. A smoldering wick you will not quench. Oh, how does he say it? Yeah. No. Smoldering wick you shall not quench. See? A bruised reed I will not break. The bruised reed may be your hope for tomorrow. I will not break it. Believe in tomorrow. I mean it. I try to teach that to my kids. Believe in tomorrow and grab it.